It's a great pleasure today again at the KDR TV stations. We are very much privileged to have the Eacc officials who are going to explain to Kenyans on their strides, their challenges they've been actually having as an organization or as a commission fighting corruption in Kenya. So before we start, we would love to let you know that we are having the Deputy Director, Eacc, Bwana Charles Rasugu, and Bwana Philip Kagushia, who is the head of communications, Eacc. And I'm also joined by one great lady, a Kenyan lady, but living in London, Dr. Sheila Chebet Maonga, who is actually going to be my co-host. So I welcome you all to this particular show, and feel at home. Don't feel threatened. Everything is going to be discussed here. Everything is going to be churned, and we want to really ask several questions. Most of the questions you viewers did ask them or did send them to us, and now today we are going to let Bwana Rasugu Charles and Bwana Philip Kagushia to answer them. So, Dr. Sheila, if you have any introduction, please go ahead. This is your time.
Hello, people. Thank you very much. Greetings from the UK. Greetings, people in Kenya that have joined to tune in with us today. Greetings from Kenyans in the diaspora. Thank you very much, Bernard. Bernard is the chair of Association of Kenyans in the Diaspora, and together we're bringing you this program under KDR TV, that is Kenya Radio and TV. We feature everything that matters to Kenyans, that affects Kenyans wherever they are. And today, here in the house, as Bernard has said, we have brought to you the Eacc. We are privileged enough to have the Eacc come with us here today. We've got the head of communication. We've got also the deputy director as well. It is an honor to have them here with us. And for those watching us, thank you very much for tuning in. You are going to have the time of your life today, because I am sure these questions that you gave to us, you've wanted them to be answered by the Eacc directly. And here we brought them to you. We are KDR TV. We bring Kenyans to you. As you know by now, we bring people, they come, they talk, we ask questions, they answer, and we communicate, and we end up being one whole country as a whole, as we've always wanted to be. So I will welcome the guests. I would like them to introduce themselves. I will begin with the Deputy Director. If you could just tell us who you are, tell us something about yourself, who you are, and why you're here today. Thank you. Karibu sana, Mr. Rasugu.
Thank you so much, Sheila, and for hosting us today. We are indeed very delighted. My name is Charles Nyatundo Rasugu, Deputy Director in the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and currently in the line of duty, I'm deployed as the leader for the Central Region which covers 6 counties in the Mount Kenya region. So I'm very glad, and we are open to share with you everything that you want to know about corruption to bear here today within the confines of what is expected from us. Feel free to ask questions, and we are here for you. Thank you so much.
Asante sana, Mr. Rasugu. Asante. You heard it for yourself, Kenyans, that the Deputy Director is here today, and he is ready to answer your questions. I welcome you, Mr. Nikasahau jina already na nilikuwa najienda kusahau.
Kagushia.
Mr. Kagushia, yes. Mr. Kagushia, nitakuita Philip. Just to err on the side of caution, isisahau. Karibu Mr. Philip Kagushia, tu salimie, alafu tuambie who you are and why you are here today.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Ben. First of all, greetings from Kenya. Greetings from the Eacc fraternity. My name is Philip Kagushia. I am a lawyer by training. I've been working with Eacc for 11 years. I am currently in the role of Head of Corporate Communication. and this is actually part of my job. So when Sheila asks what we are hoping to achieve here, I'm hoping to discharge my functions, that is letting Kenyans and other people, wherever they may be and who are watching, know what EACC is doing. Thank you very much for hosting us.
Okay, asante sana, Kenyans. This is KDR TV, and as we have told you, and we'll keep on saying about this all the time, we are having EACC in the house today, and just not anybody from EACC. We're having the deputy director himself with the head of communication. So we got a few questions, Mr. Asugu and Mr. Kagusha. We got a few questions that came from the people. When you agreed to come and to speak to us, we went to the Kenyans and we told them, Kenyans in the diaspora, and said, EACC is coming, kindly. What would you like us to ask them? And the questions were many. The questions were very, very many. So Bernard and I are going to ask you the questions as we go along. And I will start by the first question. And it will go to you, Mr. Kagusha, first and foremost. The Kenyans out there felt that to work for the EACC, you somehow needed to be known by the government, or you needed to protect the government. Like you were there coming to protect the people, so safe to protect them from the long arms of the law. Kind of like EACC was kind of coming to make sure the corrupt people, or if there's anyone in the government and they're corrupt, they are kept safe. So I would like you, Mr. Kagusha, to tell us, how do you get to work in the EACC? Do you have to know people in government? Do you have to kind of come in there to protect people? How does someone get to work for the EACC?
Thanks, Sheila. Maybe the best response to that should be my personal experience. So as I mentioned, I'm an advocate by training, and I had been in private practice for 5 years. And one day I saw an advert in the newspaper, and it was asking for a lawyer to do asset recovery. So I did the application. In fact, it required a lawyer with minimum 5 years experience. And I was only clocking that 5 years in April 2010. So I wasn't even really serious about the application, but I applied and they asked me to go in for an interview. But this is where it gets interesting. I don't know if Rasugu remembers, but in those days, we were very few and everybody knew each other. We had a different dispensation and things were very serious. So when I got the interview, I told them I couldn't make it because I had cases in your hometown, Charles. I had a case in Kisii, I had a case in Oyugis, and a case in Bomet. And I asked for permission to come back another day. And you wouldn't believe this. People don't think the government can be efficient or considerate or accommodating, but they allowed me to reschedule the interview. And unfortunately, on the day I finished my last case, I fell ill. So you can remember I have one issue. I have asked for a change, and on the next day I have a very bad cold. So I didn't really prepare very well for the interview, and I really struggled on the day of the interview. Now, what happens is that there are technical questions, as in all interviews, but there are other questions to gauge whether this person has potential to work. And what I would like to say, because this was truly a blessing for me, there was somebody who took a gamble on a very young lawyer 11 years ago, and although they knew this guy was struggling because he was unwell, they offered me a job, and I've been with them 11 years. And just so that you know that it's not 11 years of nothing, I am an asset recovery lawyer, and what we have done is we have taken many people to court. We have recovered very many assets, and for the first time in the history of this country, and I don't think there's anywhere else in Africa, we have actually recovered unexplained assets. So if you think about it, Sheila, if somebody had not taken a chance on that young man 11 years ago, Kenyans would not maybe have had this opportunity to talk about unexplained assets.
Thank you very much for that answer. You're giving hope to all of us here listening to this story, basically telling us that any Kenyan that sees an appointment or a vacancy by the EACC, they can apply and they can be given a chance, even if they don't meet the day interview or anything. There is basically some merit. So thank you very much. We shall be coming to talk about asset recovery later. Now I would like to ask a question to the deputy director before I hand over to Bernard to ask many other questions. When we were telling people we were having the EACC come to our studios, many people asked, what exactly does the EACC do? What what does it do in layman's language? If you are to explain, if you are to go to school and explain to children that, oh, we are the EACC, they wanted to know, what is it that you do exactly? So I'm asking you, Deputy Director, what do you do? What does the EACC do?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shira. And I'm glad that we need to tell what we do. The Ethics Corruption Commission, because that's our full name, is a body which is created by the Constitution of Kenya, and indeed through the Constitution we have the Ethics and Corruption of 2011. So the law has put this body in place basically to fight corruption, to combat and prevent occurrence of corruption in this country. And when we talk about corruption, we're talking about issues of enforcing the law, which relates to corruption. And when we are talking about enforcing the law, we're talking about investigating acts of corruption. Where there is suspicion that corruption is taking place, where there are reports that corruption is taking place, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will move in, investigate, and prepare a file with recommendation. We have enforcement in terms of asset recovery, a very interesting area which my colleague, Mr. Kagushia, has alluded to, and indeed we shall be delving it because this is the area where there are those assets, there are those monies, there are those lands which were public and they are in the hands of the private in a wrong way through corrupt means. How do we return them to the public? And that recovery. We have prevention of corruption. We don't just sit to wait for corruption. We also prevent. We implement certain programs in the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission whose aim is really to prevent corruption from occurring. And we will sharing a little bit more into the areas where we have had to stop corruption which was going to occur. We are going to share areas which we know we prevent and all that, education, all that. And if you realize the name of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, there is an element of ethics which implies kuna mambo ya maadili hapo ndani. To believe that corruption does not just start. It is born through a certain act in values, the weak values we have, ile tabia mbaya ambayo tuko nao because of that corruption. So we have a role in terms of the ethical conduct of Kenyans and all that. So in a nutshell, I want to say we in corruption in Kenya, a place to be, and all that is what we do to fight corruption and combat corruption in the country.
Thank you so much, Charles. You've mentioned very many good things that I'm sure we would want to go in details. You say there are things that you will share with us as we go along. I am especially very keen on knowing the preventative measures that you put on, but we'll reach to that. Right now, I'm going to invite Bernard to ask some questions based on what you have said so far. Bernard, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bwana Charles, again, this question is actually coming to you directly. Who gives you cases to investigate? And how do you decide which matter to pursue and prosecute?
Thank you, Bernard. May I start by saying that the cases to investigate are so many in the environment. But how we come indeed is that we receive most of these cases from members of the public. We have what we call report center in the EACC, and the report center collects all complaints of corruption that is directed to us or is relevant to us. So in a way, we get people send us emails, people call us through telephone, people, also in things like the media, if people mention or they have, articles about corruption and all that, we get this, and the moment we get it, we have to take action. And which action are we taking when it comes to issues of investment? There are so many that have to be strategic and analyze them. So the report center analyzes these cases, and I think to allay the fears of that we can pick a case and leave another, internally we have organized ourselves into a committee which deals with those cases and makes recommendations to the various arms of the commission that handles them, because we have different arms which deals with them. So upon that then, upon analysis of the cases, then the cases are prioritized. Because we can't handle every case, then we begin to work on them. you will find that there are cases of corruption which come and they may not even have corruption. Because of that, we also refer some cases to some relevant other relevant agencies to deal with them. It could be a land matter. Kagusha talks about land, and it does have a land issue we are going to handle. We are going to handle land which is covered within of the law in terms of unexplained assets, in terms of public assets and all that. But if it's between you and your neighbor, we are going to refer that to the right agency. So we do that. We have an analysis system, indeed, overwhelming cases which are coming from the people, and that's how we channel them to process them in terms of investigations.
Thank you very much for that answer, Bwana Charles. So let me also now ask you, Bwana Kagushia, this, let me not call it a simple question, but let me ask you this particular question. What challenges, if any, do you face as an organization or as a commission?
Well, I can start with where Charles finished when he was talking about the reports. Eacc receives about 7,000 reports every year, okay? 7,000. Out of those, we analyze and we realize that half don't even fall squarely within our mandate. So as Charles mentioned, some of it's a boundary dispute, or amo metapeliwa. You went to town and you were conned and you think that is corruption. So, morally it is corrupt for somebody to con you, but it doesn't fall within our mandate. Eacc is a creation of the law, as Charles pointed out. So if you imagine that out of 7,000, only about half, but that half is still in excess of 3,000 reports. Now, Ben, I don't know how whether you know that our staff complement is only about 730. Out of 730, only about a third of those people are actually in operations. That means investigators, people who can actually start working on the case. So how are you going to have 200 people investigate 3,000 cases? It is physically impossible. But every time we talk about challenges, it makes Eacc seem helpless, which I don't like doing. Although there are great challenges, we have come up with a strategy, and the strategy is to deal with high impact cases. Now, what do I mean by high impact? We look at if it's the value. We look at the value. If the value is high, that case is high priority. It is prioritized. If the case involves a public personality, a high-profile individual, it is also prioritized. And the third and equally important thing is if it is a case that has great public interest, it is also prioritized. So I think it is important for Kenyans to know that notwithstanding the challenges that we experience, we have come up with strategies to mitigate those challenges.
Thank you very much, Bwana Kagushia. Now let me hand it over now back to Sheila. There are a couple of questions also Sheila is supposed to be asking. Go ahead, Dada Sheila.
Ni wewe ninakukujia na maswali. So basically you said that one of the challenges that you face is that there is kind of like staff shortage when it comes to comparison, the number of cases based, when you base them on the number of staff that is there is kind of shortage. And the remedy that you seem to have approached is a remedy whereby you are prioritizing the cases as opposed to maybe increasing the staff. You're now saying, okay, we're going to have big cases and small cases. And the case that looks, this is big, we take it. And the one that looks like it's small, what happens to it? What happens to the case that looks like it's high impact or high value? What happens to such a case?
What is interesting is that, they run parallel. I'm just saying that you prioritize. Prioritization simply means you bring something which will give you a bigger impact, you bring it to the top. As you continue to deal with everything, it's just like life. You're building a home, you're doing a master's, you want to buy a car, and your kids are in school. What do you prioritize? It doesn't mean you stop, but you do prioritize certain things. But what I find very interesting is the issue of big and small cases. To be honest, Eacc haibagui. There's no big fish, there's no small fish. And the number of cases which actually go through, most of them are the ones which you would call the smaller ones because they are simpler to prove. So for example, mtu akishikwa akiitisha hongo, hiyo kesi sio ngumu kuipeleka mahakamani, sio kama kesi complicated ambayo ina involve something like Anglo leasing. Those two cases are different, and maybe because we are addressing our brothers and sisters out there who are watching, on the one hand you're saying we are focusing on high impact cases, but on the other hand you're worried about the small cases. Yet when EACC communicates, because we do that on a regular basis, I think almost every week we have a conviction or a success in asset recovery. People say hizi ni ndogo ndogo, tunataka zile kubwa. So we are sort of in the middle there. We are doing both, but Kenyans need to know that we prioritize the high impact ones as we still run with the other cases.
Thank you very much for that, and it's triggering more questions which I am going to ask the Deputy Director. But before we do that, I have to remind the viewers that we are having EACC in the house today. We've got the Head of Communication of the EACC, and we've got the Deputy Director. Thank you very much for staying with us. We also are aware from the guests that EACC itself as well, they are watching. So bring your questions. The questions you're asking, you're just not asking the Deputy Director and the Head of Communication. You are asking EACC itself. So the question I'm asking Mr. Deputy Director, and this is based on what Mr. Kagame said, meaning that some of the cases are harder to prove. So the cases that end up being taken further and prosecutions happening are the cases that are easy to prove. Which, in the same vein, Kagushi has also said that EACC haibagui. Anyone that is cited to be involved in any corruption, that person is investigated by the EACC. Now, knowing how Kenya is, and knowing that some people probably will be more skilled at corruption, or they'll have more access to things that they can. Invariably, these people always happen to be the ones that are very high up, very powerful. So my question is that if the EACC gets information through the phone calls or through the emails that someone high up in the government has been involved in some corruption, like corruption or so, and there is no proof, there is no tangible proof as such, but there is circumstantial evidence, let's say, how will the EACC proceed with such information?
So, Shera, I think we are not confusing anybody here. When we are saying that at Upagwe, it's because by definition of corruption, we are talking about office for your personal gain. And indeed, you can abuse your office when you are a small person, an accountant somewhere there, when you are a police officer out there, when you are a lands officer, you can also abuse your office at the level that you can imagine in, and that within the law. So it's only that within EACC, I may want to say that we have also structured in such a way that we have those departments which will be dealing with small cases, the direct cases of bribery and all that. Those are the ones which, because there are people who are employed just to deal with those small cases. So they have to produce, and what they have to produce then is the small cases, because that's what they are employed, that's what their is all about. We are talking about the big cases, we call them forensic cases, which are of high value and all that. We will have to do that. But basically, for us to have a strategy, the strategy is when we are talking about the group of cases, then we are even to say which ones have more impact than others. Now, what I want to say is, when we get reports about people in high offices, doing corruption and all that, we'll go into the issues and investigate. One thing you'll have to realize is that investigation is a self-driven process. It drives itself, because it's not, you don't start by saying, and so it looks like there's a report, so it's guilty or not. You will have to go and find evidence that fits into the description of what you can say there is corruption. And the moment you get the evidence, it has to be matched against the existing law, and then you can now say these are the offenses which have been committed by so and so. So the moment the evidence is sufficient, then we do a recommendation to the office of the Director of which has the constitutional mandate to decide who to take to court and who not to take, based on the evidence that there is. And I can assure you, over 90% of our recommendations to the office of the DPP are acceptable, which do a thorough job. There are cases where, in the case the DPP feels we can do some further work on the files and all that, we still work together and be able to finalize. But I can assure you, 90% of our recommendations are really acceptable. So it doesn't matter how high someone is, how low someone is. What matters is really the evidence that we have against that person. And the moment we have the evidence, which we objectively have to look for, then indeed we have to and recommend for prosecution of that individual. If there is no evidence, it doesn't matter again how big you are. There is no evidence, so we'll not be able to, because we are not witch hunting. We are not looking for people to take to court. There are enough we have evidence to take to court. So if we don't have evidence against Shira or so and so, so be it. We move to the next level.
Thank you very much. What I'm taking from that evidence is very important. And once you have the evidence, you take it to the office of the DPP. Now, this triggers another question, Mr. Charles. When you take it to the DPP, do you follow it up, or you take it to the DPP and say, you know what, I've handed it over now. Whatever DPP does with it is not our business. What happens after you take it to the DPP?
I have the answer, but I want Mr. Kagusha to answer it.
Mr. Kagusha, tell us, what happens after you've taken it to the DPP?
All right. I would just want to link two things. You mentioned big cases, small cases, high-profile people. We've shared some data. I think you're aware. And if you look at some of that data, some of the people we have taken to court include cabinet secretaries. We have taken principal secretaries to court. We have 9 governors in court, 7 sitting, 2 former. We have a sitting MP who is actually a convict as we speak. So we're trying to cover all bases as we work. Now, with regard to the issue of the DPP, it is a statutory requirement. Sheria imesema tukimaliza kufanya uchunguzi tunatengeneza ile recommendation, na hiyo recommendation tunasukumia kiongozi wa mashtaka. Now the DPP looks at it. If he's satisfied, he agrees with our recommendations, we actually charge that person and they go to court straight away. If he feels that we could get some more evidence, he gives us that advice, because remember, he's also a lawyer. So he look at it and say, I would like my case to have better evidence. And we do the investigation and we take it to court. Now, if we have a 90% concurrence rate, that tells you that we are doing well. It means the files are going and those people are ending up in court.
Thank you for that answer. And now triggering another question. This is one of those discussions whereby one answer leads to another, to another, to another. Now question, because you're saying you work with the DPP, whenever DPP is mentioned, especially the Kenyan scene, we always hear the other word DCI. So the two of them, they go together, DCI. And this question for you, Mr. Kagusha, do you find the work of the EACC to be kind of repetitive to what the DCI is doing? Are your work repetitive, or are they totally two separate things?
That's an interesting question. And this is how I would like to approach it so that Kenyans understand. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, is our partner in the multi-agency task force. We are under the same umbrella. Tuko chini ya mwavuli moja. We are doing the same work. And we have other partners aside from DCI. We have the Asset Recovery Agency. We have the Kenya Revenue Authority. We have the Office of the Attorney General. We have Kenya's Financial Intelligence Unit, which is known as the FRC, Financial Reporting Center. We have the DPP. I think those are 6 members. So we are working together for the same end. And I would just like to give an example, maybe because you guys are out there in London and in Minneapolis. When you go, I think it's about afternoon in Minneapolis right now. If you go for your Sunday lunch and you ask for a burger and fries and onion rings and a milkshake and then dessert, all those things are not made by the same person. So you have a pastry chef, here at a dinner pastry. You have the guy who will flip the burgers. You have somebody who will do the fries. You have somebody do the salad and your milkshake. But by the time you're getting your meal, you have a complete meal. So what Kenyans need to understand is we are all working together. We are all pulling in the same direction because we all have the same objective. Now, legally, DCI's mandate is to investigate all crime, including corruption. Whereas Eacc is a specialized unit. We deal solely with corruption and economic crime. So that is the only time it seems like there's a bit of overlap, but it is not repetitive. Being repetitive is not efficient. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you. Another question is triggered from this. You know, there is this thing in Kenya we call mashakura, huh? Whereby you mix mashakura. You mix everything in one pot. Una mix inakuwa mchanganyiko. Enye saa zingine ukila mchanganyiko inakupa tumbo unaumwa ile yenye hutaisahau. You cannot travel anywhere because you need to be near the house, near some small rooms in the house. So, you mentioned around 6 agencies working together, pulling in the same direction, which may sound like a good thing, but doesn't this sometimes pose a challenge whereby you're thinking this one falls within the remit of someone else, let them deal with it, or this one falls within this other one, or this file needs to go here and come back first? How do you work? How do you know that? How do you make sure that this mashakura, when it comes, it's not giving you stomach upset, it's just gelling and giving you nutrition instead?
That's very easy. Maybe the best way to give you an example is to use a case. And we can use like what we call a high impact case, high value. So sometimes we have a report. It comes in the system and it says Sheila has $1 million in her account. It doesn't make sense. She just joined the county the other day, but somehow her lifestyle has changed. Now, at that stage of the report, as Charles rightly pointed out, we have people who will analyze it and will decide whether it's going to forensic investigation or it needs a preliminary investigation. But at the same time, we work with the other agencies. So for instance, if the Financial Intelligence Unit, the FRC, knows that Sheila has other accounts, we might find she has actually $10 million. That is information they might share. If we want to establish whether you're engaged in legitimate business, we might want to look at your tax returns. The person who will assist us is KRA, and we'll find you have $10 million, but you're filing nil returns on your accounts. So everybody is doing something that is contributing to the end result. I think what is confusing here and why you think it may become mashakura is this. If a case is reported to DCI, and they have the resources and the opportunity to investigate it, they will investigate it to conclusion and actually charge people, okay? It is not that we'll be investigating the case together. Same thing for Eacc. Now, where there is a case which seems to lean more expressly to corruption, any of the other agencies can say, you know what, this sounds like an Eacc matter, deal with it. Same thing for us. We can say, this sounds like a tax matter, you run with it. So there is no issue of mashakura. We are just chipping in and contributing to the same thing. I don't know if Charles has anything to say about this.
Yeah, indeed. I think the confusion out there, maybe we need to put it very clear that when it comes to the environment we operate in the Kenyan environment, there is a lot of corruption. We have no room to duplicate what other people are doing. So we are just, partner. There is a lot of corruption. You see, we have even a challenge in terms of prioritizing, because even after prioritizing, there's a question, can we do the remaining cases? So DCI, what DCI is doing, what EACC is doing, is only that we are not going to handle one case, as Mr. Kagushi has rightly put it, but where they are handling a case, they will deal with it. But the sense and the thinking behind the multi-agency team, which is really helping us in terms of corruption, is where what I want to say is a strategy to ensure that we don't leave room for other to get away with it. As very clear, if when it comes to information, we have an intelligence wing within EACC, but FRC can collect intelligence around what is in the banks and all that. So the moment we are handling a huge case, then the FRC will be, mining the information from the banks, from the money laundering and all that. Then we now share it. The Attorney General will be doing some fraud assets and trying to look at it. What are the assets which these people have? and all that. Then as the DPP will be, putting their input into it. So there is nothing like duplication at all. In fact, what we have is that we have under investigation in terms of the cases which we have are so many that we need to do more. So as far as I'm concerned, we are working very well, and indeed it is only that we have to put more effort for us to be able to deliver when it comes to corruption. So the mandates are very clear, and indeed we are all doing what we are supposed to do. Mashakula Akuna, it is just a good.
Thank you very much. You've answered very well, and you've actually said there is plenty of ingredients and plenty of food to go around. Basically, plenty of corruption, that there is so much of it, which is a very terrible problem to have as a country. And which leads me to this question before I hand over to Bernard to ask you. This question is for you, Mr. Deputy Director. Now, you rightfully say that there's a lot of corruption in Kenya. That means almost everywhere in Kenya, corruption has infiltrated there, meaning that there may be corruption in EACC. So I am asking, how do you ensure, or how would you deal with corruption in EACC itself?
Thank you so much. I think it's a bit controversial, but the fact is, every human being is born with a potential of corruption. What matters, or what differentiates from not being corrupt and then the sharer becomes corrupt, God forbid, is the fact that what kind of, the issue of selection. How do you select people to join an organization? That is very important. I can assure you the method under which, you started by asking Kagushia, who did he know when he came in? And I was almost being tempted to say whether I knew anybody. And my story is even more, is more interesting. It's purely competitive and all that. So the way you do entry matters very well. And that's where EACC is trying. The moment you do interviews, you advertise, you use the right procedure, don't anybody, and you come in, that's not enough. We go to the next step. You have a probation period, you have what are the mechanisms which are put in place to ensure that you continue performing well, just like you promised. There's training, there's everything. But in terms of integrity, if for any reason integrity is in question, with the EACC, you will not survive. It will not take long. So you have to be separated so that you leave us, you go and do your things out there, we hunt you now instead of you, mixing up things. So what I'm saying here is that the selection process, the systems which are put in place, likely enough, we have the head who is a bishop. He'll pray for you, but if you don't joke around, he will not, he will be shut the door. So the fact is, it is competence, it is about integrity, it's about taking those who are against. As a matter of fact, 1 or 2 cases we have had to take action within our own establishment for people who are showing interest in promoting corruption other than fighting corruption. But the numbers are so minimal that we can proudly tell Kenyans we are the right people to fight corruption.
Thank you very much, viewers. This is KDR TV, and today in the studio we have Mr. Charles Rasugu, the Deputy Director of EACC, and Mr. Philip Kagushia, the Head of Communication of EACC. Bring your questions, stay with us. This is KDR TV, and we are making good progress getting those questions of yours answered. Stay right there with KDR TV. I now invite Bernard to ask any questions that he has to our guests today. Bernard, over to you.
Thank you very much, Bwana Charles. Thank you very much, Bwana Kagushia, for coming and answering the questions Kenyans are asking, not only the diaspora, but also in Kenya. Now let's take this a little bit a notch higher. Here is the scenario I actually want us to look at. A few questions Sila has actually tried to modulate or ask them, but now let me ask some of the questions from my own perspective. What's your vision in the next 5 years? And basing on that particular question, do you guys actually have like a timeline for a case to be done in a month or in a year or in 2 years? So do you have timelines and what your goal and targets? Mr. Philip, can
All
you
right.
answer that question?
Yes, so I like the question about the vision, because see, the vision is what carries our aspirations as Kenyans and as EACC. So technically, EACC has a technical document, a strategic plan. We are running with a strategic plan for the next 5 years, 2018 to 2023. And it is out of that strategic plan that you'll see certain on high profile, high impact cases, and emphasis on things like asset recovery. So we have a strategy, we have a plan. But when you come down to the cases, we really cannot control how long a case will take. And there was an earlier question about challenges. That is actually one of the images. The case involving the Sirisi MP, where he was convicted to serve 67 years. The issues that he was involved in started in 2009. They were concluded last year. When you think about it, it's really difficult. The Anglo-Lucian cases, the investigation started in 2006. The suspects were only charged in 2016. The case is still in court. And I wouldn't blame our partners, because we're in a criminal justice chain. It's like a conveyor belt. Sisi tunaanza na uchunguzi, tunapatiana recommendations, DPP anakubali, anafungua mashtaka, lakini kesi ikifika mahakamani pia kule kuna changamoto zao binafsi. So if you look at the courts, do they have enough staff? If the case is very complex and has a lot of documentation, and it happened many years ago, how long do you think it will take? If the suspects are many, I think the NCPB case has 20 or 25 accused persons. Each one has a lawyer. If you think about it, how long will that case take? And I'm glad you asked me that question, Ben, because we are all Kenyans. Have you ever taken a case to court yourself? Even Kesi Raisi too. How long did it take you? So if you can imagine your own private matter takes 2 to 3 years, how do you think a complex white-collar crime, which probably has an international, is going to take? So in terms of the vision, I'd just like to leave you with a message from our CEO, Major Twalib Mbarak, and he keeps reiterating this. We are looking forward to a time when we have Kenyans on our side, and that's why we have been told to engage Kenyans. That's why we are here on KD. We're talking to them from every corner of this globe. We need Kenyans on their side, because Kenyans need to understand they also have a role to play. One of the roles that they need to play is what Charles was alluding to about making reports. Of course, the first thing is to abstain from. But the second and equally important thing, and I would like to reiterate, is to elect leaders of integrity. We'll be going into an election next year. You cannot return a thug to parliament or to the county or wherever it is and keep complaining about. That is a very straightforward tool. Just vote them out. Whatever percentage of them that will go home will contribute massively to the war against corruption. So that is our vision. Our vision is that one day we'll be able to bring down, corruption is like HIV. We might not be able to eliminate it. And we are going through another pandemic right now that we might have to learn how to live with. But for corruption, we need to bring it down to manageable levels.
Thank you, Bwana Kagushia. From your own explanation, it seems to me that without a good political will, we might not actually succeed as Kenyans in fighting corruption. And you are not a politician. I don't want you to drag you into that particular direction. But right now, we have got a document called BBI. I don't want you to have any views about the BBI, but there is a clause there telling us that, or promising Kenyans that in 2 years' time, corruption cases will have been finalized. So does that one really, sound like music in your ears, or it's not? I just give you your honest opinion about it through your agency or through the commission. Go ahead, sir. Manda Philip.
Oh, that's fine, Bernard. That's not a controversial thing. In fact, that proposal had been made before. I think there was a proposed amendment to the Anti-Corruption Economic Crimes Act, which is the law that we use to prosecute suspects. And the idea is to also not have, because if you're charged and you're a public officer, you know, the first thing that happens to you is you're suspended and you have to get out of that office. So again, you know, as a lawyer, you know, justice cuts both ways. Is it fair to put somebody out of office for 10 years because the case is taking 10 years? And maybe that is what we are trying to address. But you cannot address it if you do not resolve the other issues in the chain. Does the court have enough staff? Does it have enough resources? So 2 years is not controversial. In fact, if it were possible, we would finish it in a year. And just to tell you that it is possible, we have other jurisdictions concluding matters in less than 12 months. And you see, justice delayed is justice denied. And I mean justice for both sides. The side of the prosecutor, which is the state, and the side of the accused, who is the suspect.
Thank you very much, Bwana Philip. That is a very concise and precise answer. And now we also want to ask Bwana Charles Rasugu a very straightforward question. The EACC has been accused by a section of Kenyans that when we are going to have like a general election, you always clear thugs, you clear thieves. What's your take, Bwana Charles?
Thank you, Bernard. You know, the issue of clearance is one of our mandates. When I talked in the introductory remarks about of ethics, in terms of what we do in ethics, part of it is what we do is basically clearance. And this clearance, I think we have to put it in context. It is not like EACC takes an X-ray and says, he's so corrupt and now, you know, he has a cancer, we can't treat him. We have benchmarks which we use to recommend, to say someone is corrupt or not. In fact, not even corrupt. When you are corrupt, we take you to court, but you lie with it. And the issue of integrity, if you go back to our statutes, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, I mean the Leadership and Integrity Act, it will be talking about who is this person who lacks integrity, and that it must be that person who has been taken to court, he has been convicted, he has exploited all the avenues of appeal. Then we can call that person to be a person who has integrity. So, given that kind of definition, I want to think that is maybe a challenge, one of the challenges you asked about, because then how many people will we classify as lacking integrity? And you know what integrity is all about. It's not like the fact that I have just been convicted. It is more, it's about my moral standing. It's also the way, you know, I carry out my duties in the office and all that. You see, yeah, we need to be also very careful when we look about issues of integrity. I know you know that there could be elections around and all that, and you hear someone charged in the court wants to go to another county or another constituency. Fine. Do we want to tell us that since the case is going on in the court and he has not been convicted from that constituency where he was, you know, maybe squandering public resources, then he has integrity as long as he has not been convicted? Let us define integrity in the right way. What does EACC do? The EACC will be looking at individuals who aspire to go to public office and look at them against the they have and all that. So we do what is called vetting. And the process of vetting, if we have information, if we have reasonable information that you case against you and all that, we give that to the agency that is requiring that information. Maybe it is the IEDC, maybe it's an employer and all that. Then after the employer or the person who is processing, it is the duty of that person to take the relevant action. And I use a very simple example, Bernard, if you allow me. The example I use always is, imagine of the house managers, the home managers, we call them nannies or whatever they are. You want them and you are told, you know, this guy here was a nanny in another neighboring place and they put the child on the fridge. So now they put the child on the fridge, that's okay. So go ahead and say that, you know, because I have not convicted this person, I can hire. You are being given red flags and you are being told, if you take this one, the possibility of your child, the lovely child being in the fridge is very high. So I know Sheila will go ahead and say, try this one. But as Kenyans, we are told, yes, he said this one has a case, this one is, under investigation on this, and there's evidence and all that. But of course, the process has not ended up. Continue to hire these people. What do we want to say? So the process of clearance is important, but EACC is not absolute in terms of making a decision, someone to be given a job or someone to be allowed to contest in public office. Because there are other laws, there are other bodies who have to play their roles. If they want to pick the nanny who has put the children on the, a child in the fridge, go ahead. It's at your own risk.
Thank you very much,
Perhaps
Charles.
Ben, I can jump in before
go ahead,
you
go
move
ahead, go ahead.
about this. Also using the term clearance, I think, is a bit confusing for the public, because what these people complete at EACC is a self-declaration form. And this self-declaration is where you put your biodata, whether you're married, whether you have children, your level of education. But there's a very interesting segment which talks about whether you have ever been charged, whether you've ever been convicted. And also we can cross-check with our database, because we have the database. People have been charged. And those recommendations are shared with the relevant body, and that is IEBC. Okay? Now, what I suspect is that the IEBC is also facing a legal challenge, in that if you look at the Constitution has given the people in public office an opportunity to continue fighting those cases until the very final appeal. So you find you have, let's say, an MP who has been charged by EACC. Okay? Charging by itself does not lock you out. Okay? You find an MP has even been convicted. That also does not lock him out until he exhausts all avenues of appeal. So you have this MP who is convicted in the magistrate's court. He has another bite of the cherry in the High Court. He has another bite of the cherry at the Court of Appeal. And if he can justify, he can even end up in the Supreme Court. Now, Bernard, you remember we were talking about how long cases take. So supposing this person is allowed to exercise all his rights of appeal to that court, will you ever get that person out on that issue? And that is why we keep saying, we need the public on our side. Ukiona mtu amechajiwa, sio kuwekelewa amewekelewa. Kuna sababu, because remember, hata DPP ameangalia hiyo file na akaona huyu mtu ako na makosa. Na akafika mahakamani na, akajibu mashtaka. So the public also need to be thinking, is like that house manager. Huyu mtu mahali alitoka na shida. Imagine if it's your accountant at KDR TV, and where they came from, walikuwa wameiba pesa. Will you hire them? Simply because they have not been convicted. Those are the sort of people you tell, you know what, we'll take a rain check, and let's look at other candidates.
Thank you very much. Because we are running out of time and we have several questions actually coming in, and at least now it's as if we are opening the Pandora box on some issues. But let's just be focused and move forward in the next 4 or 5 minutes so that we can actually close this discussion. But I can also tell Kenyans who are watching us that this is just an opening discussion with the EACC. We want to partner with them. We are part of the Kenyan community, ensuring that, or trying to ensure that we live in a comprehensive or in a clean society. So we are we are part and parcel of the EACC, or we are part and parcel of this great commission trying to fight corruption in our country so that we can have a better life. My question now to Bwana Kagushia. It is really paining me that most Kenyans also accuse you guys that when a politician is in the good side of the system, let me just call it a system, Kenyan system, is not actually having cases with EACC. But immediately he steps out of the political system, or let me not call it deep state or whatever, that is where now cases are actually opened. And are you guys really independent and doing your work as professionals, or there's some political pressure from somewhere actually making your work actually to be paralyzed sometimes?
That's a very good question, because you cannot ignore it when it is asked. But here's the thing, Bernard. When the reports come in, does EACC even know which political leanings these people are in? And as you know how fluid Kenyan politics is, Today, one guy is on this side, the next day is on the other side. Do we even know? Do we even care? And if you look at the data I shared with you, and as I mentioned, just by way of example, 9 governors. Have you checked to see which side they are coming from? Because if you have 9 governors, 7 sitting, 2 former, they're from each side. And some of the cases are from way back before we had sides, so to speak. So for us, it's not an issue. And just once on independence, EACC is an independent. In fact, the way it is written in the Constitution, Article 79, there shall be an independent ethics and anti-corruption commission. Okay, you will never hear the head of state making a direction. EACC does not take any directions from anyone. And just to confirm that, somebody actually went to court, and we got part of a decision saying that when His Excellency the President told EACC to do its work within 60 days, just that, telling you to do your work on time, that amounted to interference. So basically, everybody knows the Constitution says you are independent. The courts have confirmed that EACC is independent.
Thank you very much. Because of time, Dada Sheila, do you have one question so that we also give them closing remarks? Do you have any burning question you want to ask them? Let it be brief, please. Thank you. You are muted, Sheila. Okay, go ahead.
I have so many burning questions. It looks like we will invite the guests once again to come so that we can have this discussion. There's so many questions I would like to ask. But for now, I will ask each of you question. I'll ask 2 questions addressing each one of you at the same time. So I will start with you, Philip. When I finish the question, I'll ask else, and then you can answer each at a time. So for you, Philip, you said earlier on, or rather, Charles said that there is reporting structures or reporting mechanisms in place where the public can report cases. As the head of communication, I would like you to tell the Kenyans watching here today, in very clear terms, whether your communication channels work. We have, when it comes to government offices or government structures, normally emails go unanswered, phone calls go unanswered, names, or sometimes you report things and then the next day you find people are looking for you. So how, first and foremost, how are your systems operational? Do you answer phone calls? Do you answer emails? Where can this information be found? And when someone is reporting, what criteria do they need to have? Do they have to give their name, their address, or anything? What information do you need, or can you report anonymously? That is the question to you. And for you, Mr. Asugu, lots of questions that have come in this comment section, and the question that many of us are also asking is amnesia. In Kenya, we normally have amnesia. You've given the example of a domestic manager putting a child in the fridge and then the new employer forgetting all about that and deploying that. So it's like we have this amnesia. We forget. We forget this particular leader had done this wrong and now we elect him again to another place, maybe even give him a higher position. So my question to you is, when it comes to these cases, let's say there was a case that was reported to EACC before that, oh, this person has been cited in corrupt cases. I'm talking people high up in government. And then that case, DPP maybe doesn't do anything or it doesn't go anywhere. Then there comes another case about the same person and another case over and over. Does EACC have amnesia whereby it always forgets cases? Maybe files disappear. Maybe you don't remember anything, as you've said. You've said you have integrity and all that. Does this integrity extend to remembering previous cases, or amnesia happens, as it is known to happen in many government offices? I will start with you, Philip, to answer the question about reporting mechanisms.
Okay, so very quickly, because a lot of you guys are out there in the diaspora, I would just direct you to our website, eacc.go.ke, because all the links are there. So you have links for your reports, and you can even report anonymously. But aside from that, most people bring in the reports physically. They make telephone calls, they send emails, they write letters. Everything goes into the report center. And from the report center, it is analyzed before we decide which way it's supposed to go. And also so that you keep, because I know there are people out there, so they keep abreast with what we are doing. We have other digital platforms. We are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel. So anybody who is out there, please follow EACC, and all that information is available.
Thank you very much for that. We will look for you at the digital platforms as well. And one thing just for you, Mr. Kagusha, it is safe if someone reports someone even high up in government. Would you guarantee their safety, that nothing would happen to them? You won't go and say, hey, this is the one that reported. Is it safe for them to report?
Safe, and that is why you've never had anybody who reported to EACC anonymously who was victimized. It has never happened.
Thank you very much, Kenyans. You had it from the EACC head of communication himself, that it's very safe to report. You can find EACC on all digital platforms, as well as on their website, where you can report anonymously. Over to you, Mr. Rasugu. Tell us about whether amnesia and files disappearing are addressed at the EACC.
I want to say I wish we had more time, and I recommend that maybe in future we have topical issues. We just deal with a certain section and it's exhaustively, because the mechanisms which are put in place are more elaborate. And I don't remember a case where a file disappears in EACC. What happens is that some cases, by their nature, investigation can be complex, and there are also simple cases. So when it becomes a bit complex and it takes a little bit of time, people will go, it's like EACC mechanism. And indeed, I have had experiences where people say, you know, I had a case with EACC and I got it, but the other day I was called and I was arrested. I went to court and all that. It's because sometimes it may take a little bit. So there's nothing like amnesia in terms of getting cases, but we have also told you that indeed, if we have investigated so many cases in a certain individual or a certain case, I mean, it makes sense to prioritize and also have cases in terms of impact, so that you don't have to deal with only one individual, because there are so many others who are also, so you weigh them against the nature of the case, and indeed in terms of the public interest, and indeed in terms of priority, in terms of coverage. If we are dealing with you and the case is about offenses, and we have another person who we are going to recover from, and we have only resources to deal with one, I think we have, the priority means that let us recover what can, back to the public as we deal with the offenses. So what we are saying, and indeed, as we talk about this corruption, and when we finish, the best vetting for us should be the vetting which comes from Kenyans. It was work as EACC, but Kenyans have got a bigger role to play, because if someone says, I want to find, I am corrupt, I mean, nobody's going to ask Kenyans, what did you use, what criteria did you use to vote me out? It's just absolute. But you know, for EACC, we have to look for evidence, we have to do what? For us to say this part have. But Kenyans must know, if these people, if they call them thieves, like I don't want to call anybody a thief, let the Kenyans do their bit.
Thank you very much. I'm going to invite you, Mr. Kagusha, to just speak to the audience, people that are watching, and this is recorded, so the videos would also be shared over to many other platforms. We're giving you this time to address the Kenyans in the diaspora. We're bringing them to you. We brought you to them. Now we're bringing you to them. What would you say? 1 minute addressing the Kenyans in the diaspora. You said it's our work for Kenyans to work together. So kindly give your parting shots to these Kenyans.
Yes, now because we were talking about the future, and I know there's many guys out there who haven't been home for 5, 10, 20 years. We're hoping when you come back, you find things better than you left them. That is why we are here. We are working for you. But also you have to support us. Don't give up on the fight against corruption. Don't let apathy get you down. You know, sometimes even on the media, which is a strategic partner in the war, if the media keeps telling you about corruption, it's one of two things. Either there's a lot of corruption, or that EACC is doing a lot of work. That's why every day, you have a story in the media. So do not give up. We are on the same side. We're working for the same country, and we're hoping in 5 years or whenever you guys are coming back, you find it better than you left it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kagusha, the head of communications at EACC. We have received your message that we shouldn't give up on the fight for corruption. There really is no option. We cannot give up. Thank you. Message has been received, and I am sure the Kenyans in the diaspora will take that on board. Mr. Rasugu, I am inviting you to address the Kenyans in the diaspora. Give them your parting shot.
Thank you, Shira, and thank you for hosting KDR TV. I just want to say for us Kenyans in the diaspora, still home east, west, south, north, home is best. So let efforts of fighting corruption in our country. I think the country will be better off if we don't have corruption. Let us, deal with the challenges. Yes, there are challenges, but we don't give up. If you ask me today, without EACC, without the fight against corruption, Kenya could be worse. But now where we are and the strategies we have put in place, you can count on us to fight corruption, but we are also counting on you to support this corruption so that we make Kenya a better place for us to live in. I know you enjoy, in other there are good infrastructure, there are good, things around healthcare and all that. You want that one to be in your motherland home. So please let us support fighting corruption and let us not give up. Let us be our brother's keeper and do all that we need to fight corruption in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asugu, the Deputy Director for the EACC in Kenya. We've been having this guest today here. The EACC was here at KDR TV, and those were the shots which we were receiving from both Mr. Kagusha, Head of Communication, and Mr. Asugu, Deputy Director for EACC. Thank you very much for giving us the audience, for coming and answering our questions. There were so many questions you indulged us. There was humor. There was a lot of education, certainly from myself, and I'm sure Bernard and the rest of the community of KDR TV that watched. We have learned a lot. One thing I have learned is that EACC is working with us, not against us, because I was one of the people that felt, I don't think they are really doing anything. But just from what you've spoken and what you said, I'm like, oh, yes, actually, yes, that is true. So thank you very much for coming here. We shall invite you again. Mr. Akugu, we've taken on board what you've said about having topical issues so that we can exhaust deeply. So we will call you again so that we can come and talk about a particular topic from the beginning to the end. From KDR TV, we say thank you very much. I will hand over to Bernard to give his parting shots, and then we can call it a day or a night or an evening because we're in time zones.
Thank you very much, Dada Sheila. Thank you very much, Bwana Kagusha, Bwana Charles, for having an opportunity or for having some time to come and speak to Kenyans, not only in the diaspora, but also in Kenya. KDR TV is a media company churning information, distributing information to every part of the world where Kenyans live or where our friends actually also live. We would love to request any Kenyan who is actually out there who wants to get information from us, who wants to get our news, to subscribe, like our page on Facebook, and ensure that when we are actually live, you can get the notifications. The other thing, we also would love to encourage our Kenyans. Let's have a platform we can discuss. At KDR TV, we are very open. We want to say the way it is. We want to open up. We want to ensure Kenyans actually select good leaders, as our EACC officials have actually encouraged us to do. So it's our part, it's our chance to use that button or to hit the button and actually get good leadership in our country. Thank you very much. Till next time, may God bless you. And thank you very much. Dada Sheila from London, thank you very much. We also hope that in EACC, we have got ladies also. We here at KDR TV, we are also good. We love having ladies here. So send our greetings to Bishop Wabukala, Bwana Mbaruk, and pass our greetings to the whole EACC team. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.